One of the things that we've noticed in some of the research that I've been doing recently, if you go back about 50 years ago, and I can't remember her name. I was looking it up before I came here because I figured we'd talk about this. There was a researcher out of MIT that had collectively put together about 50 years worth of data research on male testosterone production over time. Okay. And so she took a 50-year swath of, I think she started it, at 20. And she figured out that on average, the human male loses about 1 point per year. So essentially, if you start out, let's say you start out with 100, 100 testosterone score. By the time you're 50, 60 years old, you're probably going to be around 50%. In the last 20 years, because of the introduction in the 80s to plastics and some of the chemicals that are in plastics that keep plastics soft, they found that has gone up 2.7 times the loss reduction. So essentially now, men by the time they're 40 have the testosterone level of men that were in their 90s in the 1950s. So we have lost, by the time we're 40 years old, almost 80%, some, not all, almost 80% of our testosterone producing capacity because of these chemicals. The research is very compelling. There's not a lot of data to back it up other than test level checks. They haven't done any kind of, internal research in males to see if it's actually the plastics or is it, a host of other things. But the one thing that keeps showing up is we're losing way more testosterone now than we ever have in the past. It's also food production, all the chemicals that's in our food. Yep. We eat almost nothing that doesn't have some type of chemical in it. It was funny. I heard an ad. I want to say it's been a few years. It was for Kroger beef versus Walmart beef, and they were talking about the ingredients label. I'm sure you heard it. Yeah, it was everywhere. And the question was, why do you have an ingredients label in beef? Like, why do you need that? But it's true. We put something in everything we eat. So that's where TRT has come from. That's why it's so prevalent now versus what barely existed 10 years ago. And then peptides have actually been around for decades. They're used in European and Asian medicine and have been for many, many, many years. Last thing I heard, I was listening to Andrew Huberman, and I think he said somewhere around like 80 or 90 years. That these things have actually been around. We're just now learning about them because we have an FDA that really doesn't care about people. They care about profits. So because of that, we're not going to hear about anything that's actually beneficial.
Yeah. So based on what you've seen now, would you recommend peptides to somebody? Because basically where I'm at is so Ryan Pineda is our coach and stuff, and he started taking them. He's getting freaking massive, which is crazy to me. Like his forearms just look bigger, everything. Like he's gotten a lot bigger. Yeah. The thing that stops me from doing anything like that, like I've never taken anything ever, and it's because I don't want to stop producing the testosterone or limit anything or take anything away from what's going to happen. So whenever my body does stop doing actually producing at the same levels, then I'm like, okay, obviously I'll do something to keep my testosterone up, but I don't want to do anything that would possibly make it happen faster, sooner, lower, anything that would be at all detrimental. Because more important than me just being, I don't care about being jacked or anything like that. I care about being healthy. Healthy is number one for me. And so would you recommend peptides to somebody, or you think that based on what you've seen, it actually will affect testosterone,
homeostasis,
something in the future?
Yeah, I would 100% recommend peptides. If you just look at the food quality of what we have now versus what we had about 40 years ago, it's nowhere near the same. I mean, just the nutrient density in the food we have now versus what we had 40 years ago doesn't exist. You can look, you can drive down, obviously we live in Fort Wayne, so, we have this huge, agricultural industry that's in this part of the country. Drive around and look at the fields, and I remember as a kid, I grew up in Wilshire, Ohio, so there's 490 people in that town as a farm town. And so when I look at the fields, I saw very dark, rich soil. You don't see that anymore. You see fields that just sit hollowed or hallowed, and it's because we just don't have the nutrients left in the soil. We've stripped it. Years and years and years of farming does that. Now we do try to put it back with nitrogen and some of the other I won't get into it because it's kind of gross, but avenues that they try to put on the soil to increase it, and it does help. It does help, but ultimately, small boutique organic farms, things like that, if you can buy your food there, you're going to be far better off. But with peptides are not synthetic in the sense that testosterone is synthetic. It is a synthetic reproduction of what your body naturally makes. And when you introduce that into your body goes, oh, we already have this. We don't need any more of this. Peptides are a secretog. They're a signaling agent. They tell the body, oh, we need to make more of this. So couple of compounds, ipamorelin and tesamorelin, these are secretogs for HGH. That may be something that your coach is taking because like the BPC and the TB, those aren't going to make you big. Those are just going to help you heal.
Coach is also taking TRT too. He's like 35, 36, 37.
He is taking TRT?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what caused him to gain the 12 pounds, I think.
I thought it was only peptides.
Well, no, the peptides are like if you started taking peptides, I think that you would notice an incremental shift in your energy and an incremental shift in your overall physiology, but it wouldn't be like magic.
No.
Like what our coach did was magic because he's taking TRT as well on top of the peptides.
Well, TRT by itself is also not something that's going to give you a whole lot of increased, muscularity or anything like that. What you usually find is, so there's a little bit of a misnomer that, TRT builds muscle. It actually doesn't. What it does do is allow you to repair it faster. So essentially, testosterone allows you to work out harder for longer, tear down more muscle, and rebuild it faster. So in that sense, it, air quotes, builds muscle. Peptides doesn't do any of that. It simply allows you to, or your body to make more of whatever compound you're lacking.